Welcome to 2023, brother. I'm here to tell you all about the hippest, most raddest, and the most badass games I played this past year.
Hey everybody. Welcome to the new year. As many of you probably know, I usually upload a video early every year called 10 raddest games I played this past year, and it would always be like this nice, formally well edited together top 10 video with all these cool transitions that I would make in After Effects, and it would take me all freaking month to do it. But unfortunately, these videos never did well, and now that I pay rent and the prices of groceries are still just skyrocketing to infinity and beyond, I kind of have to put my time and energy into stuff that's going to help me survive. But I always get a lot of people telling me that they really do appreciate seeing my recommendations at the end of the year. I don't know, I guess interesting games just kind of have a way of finding me. I know it's mostly because I'm interested in them and people know that, so people are always leaving comments telling me about really cool games. This past year was no exception. I did play a handful of really neat things. Not really so on the ball enough that I could even make a nice formal edited video, but I do still want to talk about a lot of the games I did play this past year. So let's do a compromise. I'm just hitting record on the camera, we're just winging it, and I'm terribly nervous about this because literally the first Nitro Rad video I ever did was literally this. It was just me being an idiot in front of the camera with no script, trying to explain why my top 10 games this past year were great, and I was just standing here trying to explain why Animal Crossing New Leaf was good, and it was bad. It was bad, and I looked like a fool. But I don't know, people really did seem to like off-the-cuff James in that Callisto Protocol review I did. Even if I did call it Callisto Protocol the whole frickin' video. I'm stupid, I'm sorry. But yeah, just in no particular order, I'm just gonna go through all the games I played this year, give my thoughts and opinions on each one. I didn't record gameplay of most of these throughout the year, so you might see footage of it, you might just see a trailer. You might just be looking at me while I talk about something and you don't get to see it at all. Sorry, this video is gonna be kind of duct taped together very quickly, but it's something, hopefully. But also beyond new games, I also really want to talk about kind of new games and old games, because I played a lot of games that are, within the last 5 years came out, but didn't come out this past year. And I also played more old games than I usually do this past year, because I feel like I'm always so worried about trying to keep up with everything so I can make this video. But this year I was just like, screw that, I'm gonna play Chibi Robo finally, because I want to play Chibi Robo. But we'll start with the new games, of course. We're gonna do it in no real particular order. This isn't gonna be a top 10 like I usually do. But my top 3 picks, my 3 favorite games this past year, there's a clear order in my head, so I'll do a top 3 at the end there. But for now, we're just gonna go game by game. I don't know, I'm just gonna wing it, so bear with me. Hopefully this isn't the worst video I ever frickin' made, but we'll see. XENOBLADE 3. Ooh, I remember first seeing the trailer and being really happy to see the direction it was taking. Kind of more like a darker direction, it seemed. But it certainly looked like they were going to be exploring interesting concepts yet again. That's what I always liked from the XENOBLADE games. I love this idea of lab-made universe that they kind of explore that in the first game, and the existential consciousness mindfuck they hit you with at the end of X, at the end of the credits, was really, really cool. I didn't like 2 as much. I'd still love the concepts in 2, the whole diary thing, because of the way memory works for certain characters. Incredibly fascinating, gives you a lot to think about. XENOBLADE 3 hits you with really cool and fun to think about concepts right out of the gate. Here you have this world that is nothing but war. People are just kind of brought into existence already at age 13 or something like that. They're trained from birth to be these soldiers in this never-ending war. And if you fight long enough to make it to when you're an adult, you're 25 or something, there's a ritual and you just kind of they kill you. You get offed in the ritual. It's you made it this far, you expected to die anyway, okay, here's a whole parade for you as the last thing you see, I guess. And it's a very honor-driven culture. And basically, everyone's perception of reality is just flipped upside down when they're fighting a war, and they take a guy's mask off, and he's old. He's got wrinkles, and they've never seen that. I didn't finish it. I don't even think I really even got halfway through. I didn't finish 2 either. Probably go back to it at some point, just because I know the ending is apparently bananas. Please don't spoil it for me. Probably only played about 20 hours of it, but what I did play left me with a lot to think about, and that was pretty cool. Love how many indie platformers keep popping up. There's a lot of really cheap ones like Tori 3D. That's a game you should check out if you like retro aesthetic stuff. There's another one that came out just this past year that Brady showed me called, I'm gonna say this wrong, probably. I think it's Lunastis, something like that. You play as like this little raccoon ninja girl, and it's kind of got like a little bit of physicsy movement, and what's cool is that running is your default state. You kind of have this forward momentum that's like a little difficult to slow down. You can't really stop on a dime. You're kind of dedicating to this forward movement in the way that you are when you drive a car or something. But instead of having a run button, you have a walk button, and that affects your speed midair too. So it's suddenly this interesting game of like, you're always going forward, but when do you hit the brakes a little bit? Very fun game for how simple it is, and the graphics are just adorable. They're wonderful. Dirt cheap too, so if this just looks like something you would like, it's $5. Check it out. Scorn is also something I played this year. I got an Xbox Series X, probably back in like March or May or something, and there was a first month of Game Pass is $1. So when Scorn came out, I used the 1 month of Game Pass. I didn't get to finish it before my 1 month ran out, unfortunately. But Scorn is like nuts, dude. I never thought that we would ever get to see a fully realized H.R. Geiger hell nightmare world brought to life so vividly, so detailed. Like every mechanism is some sort of organic thing. You can almost think about how it might have used to been a person, or maybe this is a stem cell from some sort of being that has been retooled into a lift or a crane or some sort of little trolley on wheels made of bone and flesh and muscle. Everything makes my skin crawl in this game, but in the best way that you can't just help but to admire it all. It's also a lot more of a puzzle game than it is an action survival horror game. It's a little bit patience testing, but I would say if you can get through something like The Witness, this is probably the game for you. A lot of walking around, just being confused. You're in an alien nightmare world. You can't even discern anything. There are no recognizable human concepts or architecture or anything here at all. For once, it actually feels like you are in a situation that is as alien as possible, and having the puzzles be somewhat cryptic, I actually think really adds to that experience of waking up, what the fuck is this? It's pretty wicked. Cult of the Lamb is another game I played. I mostly watched my girlfriend played it, but I did play a little bit of it. That is a great example of a game that has a casual element with an action side to it. I've always kind of desired that sort of thing from Animal Crossing, you know, when like you go to an island to get resources. I kind of wish there was a more action-y version of that back and forth, and Cult of the Lamb really hit that. So you're back at home making your little cute little animal cult, and you got all these little buildings you can put up, unlock new structures you can build, new things for your cult members to do, and to go get cult members and wealth to spend on things and food and whatnot, you have to go out into the forest and fight enemies and bosses, and it's kind of like a roguelite sort of thing. So if you're like me and you like action games and casual games and you want something that really nicely blends the two together, I remember like ActRaiser on Super Nintendo is probably another older example of that sort of thing. This is a very recent, well-polished, really cool, adorable version of that. Well, I say polished, I mean like visually. It was pretty buggy when it came out. We even played it on PS5, and I find the PS5 versions of games is usually the best running version at launch, and even we had some issues, but hopefully they're all fixed now. The game's been out for a little bit, so it's probably not too bad. I'd absolutely recommend it. It's adorable. It's really fun just to kind of sit at home and watch all your little critters do weird cult stuff. Pac-Man World got a remake. That was a little unexpected. The more I thought about it, the more I think I kind of should have expected it. It just falls into the pattern, the trends, and it was also definitely a lower budget thing. I think they just made it in Unity, just gave it to some small team. They didn't even credit the original creators at first, which they have now. They added an update that did that, which is pretty wicked. Pac-Man World is an incredibly charming game with a lot of issues, and the Pac-Man World remake, while I think it kind of loses a handful of things in translations, it's definitely a different interpretation of the story and graphics and stuff. It feels a lot more Japanese than American art direction wise, but it is just 10 times better to play. The controls have been improved, all of those dumb little collision problems have been ironed out, which it did include the option to play the original though. I don't think the original versions of games should be lost just because we remake them. I think there's still value in just the look of old games and also realizing, wow, once upon a time, this is all they could make with it on the hardware and stuff, and there's history there that's valuable. But you know, that aside, it is pretty amazing that they have this version of this thing now that has this wonderful coat of paint and just plays a lot smoother, so it's a lot easier for people to get into. They also nailed every boss fight, and that was pretty dope. Oh yeah, speaking of platformer revivals, KO the Kangaroo got a reboot? That's certainly not something I saw coming, but maybe I should have at this point. It feels like a lot of platformer stuff I touch ends up coming back in one way or another, whether it's usually through like remasters, like when they announced that Sphinx remastered. KO is as underdog can get. You know, like I always kind of considered Ty the Tasmanian Tiger as an underdog, a smaller Australian studio hitting a big deal with a big name publisher, making a solid trilogy that sold really well. But this was even like littler. This was just a small Polish studio that just made some okay Crash clone, and it had kind of a small following. It had a sequel on PS2. They're all okay. They're mediocre games, but they're really cute. They're endearing in their own way. So seeing them take the character and make a rather polished, really detailed, incredibly colorful visual bonanza out of it, pretty freaking exciting. Not everybody's thrilled about the new design, but if you don't like it, you can just turn on the old skin. That was a cool bonus right there. It's not gonna blow anyone's mind. It's not another Mario Odyssey or Crash Bandicoot 4 or nothing, but it's totally solid, and it is a joy to go through all of these inventive situations. All the levels are really cool. I remember this one where it's like a papaya factory, and they're spilling this bright orange papaya juice into the rivers, and you're platforming through these big vats making this juice. I'm really freaking glad this thing exists, not just because of remaking something I'm familiar with and I covered in the past, but also because it just felt like the family-friendly, casual platformer games, they were just kind of dead for a long time. You do get cool stuff nowadays, but it's like Crash 4, Psychonauts 2, like more narrative-driven stuff, or like more challenge-based stuff, but nothing that I could see like a 4-year-old just getting into and having an amazing time and remembering for the rest of their life. KO the Kangaroo feels like the modern, high production value, super graphics version of that. And yeah, it's still like a B studio game. It doesn't have like the best polish, but all things considered, it looks pretty damn good, it's pretty freaking fun, and I would absolutely recommend playing it if you're a big fan of platformers. I also played the Callisto Protocol. I was so excited for that game, and I was so disappointed by that game. I put all my thoughts on that thing out into the internet. It's got a handful of cool ideas. The combat is very weighty and satisfying, and there's a couple of little things that give it a little bit of depth. You know, this juggle, this dance, this ballet between like shoving guys away from you, hitting one guy, and trying to have this situational awareness of remembering who's where as the survival horror camera closes in on each melee encounter. Very visceral, fun stuff. Sometimes. Otherwise, you're just walking through a lot of incredibly detailed environments that are great to look at, but you can't interact with anything, so you don't really internalize any of it. You just brush past it without a thought, and then you play something like, well, you play the original Dead Space, and you're using your like psychokinesis powers or kinesis, whatever it's called, to pick things up and place them in things and drag things around. And Callisto Protocol didn't do any of that, so like it gets a few things right, but it just doesn't do anything interesting on top of that. If you're a big fan of survival horror, I would recommend playing it, but like for not a dime more than $20, bargain bin. Stray, that is a wicked cool game. Very narrative focused. It's not like an action game at all. It's a game anybody can play. You don't have to like manually platform. You just click a button and you just like kind of hop to it. But it's very much a walk around, talk to people, find the items, bring them to the right guy kind of storyline puzzle narrative structure sort of thing. I guess if I'm trying to describe something, but I'm stupid and I don't have a page of words to poke at in front of me for 10 minutes until it makes sense, so sorry. I love the art design in Stray. I love characters with TVs for heads. But what makes it so fascinating is, like, this is a world long after humans died, yet you have all of these robots that humans kind of made in their image, and they're still recreating all of these human behaviors, but without understanding the purpose of any of them. So you see them trying to eat cereal, or make music, or watch TV, and they don't know why they're doing any of these things. They're just kind of mimicking what these human beings that used to be around here used to do. There's something kind of existentially terrifying about that. That's the future of AI right there. It's just no longer understanding the purpose of art, yet just using algorithms just to slam a bunch of shit together. It looks kind of nice. This sucks, man. Stray gets weird. It gets weird. There's a part where you walk in this cave and you see this thing. You're like, I didn't know this was this kind of game. I didn't know this is a kind of spooky game. It's very cute. The art design is really fantastic. The writing's really good. It's just a really calming, relaxing, but very, very engaging story experience type thing. Check it out if you like little kitty cats. One thing I should say about Stray is I think it's absolutely a testament to how good the cat animation is in that game, because when we started playing it, all of our cats started staring at the TV. And they've never done that with any other game. Yeah, that's pretty well everything. Guess it's top 3 time. These are my 3 favorite games this year, starting with number 3. Yeah, I know y'all were waiting for this one to pop up. I played Elden Ring. It was good. You know why. I liked it. Best feature, jump button. Jump button goes a long way. I was just thinking like, yeah, jump makes sense in Sekiro. Very fast combat. You got sword slashes, katanas, shit you want to jump over and bouncing off the guys, and it's just like another extra action you can do with the combat, and also there's a lot more vertical level design. But then Elden Ring's like, but what if Dark Souls had more vertical level design and you could jump over every slope? And it's just like, holy shit, you made Dark Souls a platformer. Wet dream right there, baby. I love the world design. I think Elden Ring has some of the best art pieces in FromSoft history. You can tell, like, every horizon you see, no matter where you are standing in the world, it's easy to tell that every area was painted or drawn out first. They really thought about how each skyline was gonna look. Not skyline's not a city, but you know what I mean, the outline of the horizon. Elden Ring was also the first FromSoft game that I was actually able to piece together a little bit of the lore just on my first playthrough, because normally I don't absorb any of that shit unless it's Bloodborne, but even Bloodborne I wasn't really noticing, like, wait a minute, these churches have alien statues. What are the implications of that? That explains a lot. You know, I didn't really have those thoughts until my third playthrough. Maybe I'm just older, I know to look for that stuff, and I like thinking about that more now, but the contextual nature of the open world, I think they made good use of in a lore way. When you realize those horrible frog creatures that just look like they're always in pain, they're walking across the entire map to that cold place where they hit the portal to the Mogwin Dynasty. They were following the Mogwin Dynasty because they were left in the dust. They were left with nothing while the grafter fuckers took all the power for themselves, and these guys are like, Mogwin, we will find him in the mountains. And you see them like all over the map. They're always going all the way there. When I piece all that together myself, something clicks and you go, this is kind of a masterpiece a little bit. That said, I have a lot of issues with Elden Ring. I think that game's terribly balanced. I hate that I don't remember half of the fucking bosses because I killed them on my first try because of how, like, all over the place the structure and balance is. I think it was a game that was just a little bit too big for its own good, like just slightly too big. If it was like 10% smaller and maybe they didn't have to repeat some bosses or even just make up bosses where it's like, hey, it's just 2 enemies, except they're way too hard now and you have to fight them at once, and why are these 2 knights the hardest thing in the game? I just beat the super lightning dragon. Why am I still having a problem with these guys? And yes, I could just rebirth myself and be super wizard and kill them in 1 hit, but that's not what I want to fucking do. I want to have a mechanical conversation and I want to fight and be like, wow, I remember the theme to that boss and it was cool. That was me coming out of Bloodborne. I remember every single fight in Bloodborne, and Elden Ring's bosses, I remember like 5 of them. And they're wicked cool boss fights, but they become a little bit trivial when you walk down the street and the coolest thing you ever saw in your life is also in the cave down there. I'm not gonna pretend like it's a bad game for any of those reasons. It's just, I have my frustrations with it, despite how much I enjoy it.
But you know, even if it isn't perfect, it certainly was like the huge-ass open-world Dark Souls game we wanted for a while, and yeah, it is magical, it is enthralling, and when the challenge is hitting right, you are just having the time of your life.
Ultimately, though, what I want from a Dark Souls game, I just want one like Dark Souls 1. We did the whole open-world thing, we tried that, I'm really glad that exists now, but let's go back to that smaller, contained, interconnected world that didn't need fast travel until you got the Lord Vessel, because it was just so cool. It was just like, oh, this elevator goes down, and you look up, and you realize what you're looking up at is where you were, and you go up there and you look down, it's like, of course that's there. And it's these of course sensations every time you open a locked door. I miss that. That's what we gotta do, but with a jump button.
Number 2.
Alright, now we're getting to the good shit. Tinykin is such a dope game, dude. Okay, so I think the best way I could describe this, just to make it make sense in like 2 seconds to people that don't know what it is, it's like if Chibi Robo had a love child with Pikmin, but then they added platforming mechanics to make it more so about movement. You're a tiny little guy, you're collecting tiny little guys, you're throwing them, you're blowing stuff up, and you're moving objects, you're picking things up and bringing them to other characters. They definitely remixed the Pikmin mechanics to feel like something. It doesn't just feel like Pikmin, it didn't feel like they copied Pikmin, it felt like they kind of used those ideas as a starting point, and then they just worked to make it feel like its own thing. The Chibi Robo inspiration also feels quite obvious just in like the narrative and the art direction. You're in a lot of big bedroom, living room, kitchen, just a lot of generic household spaces that are transformed into these magical areas when you have all of these bugs, and humans are, it's like Pikmin, humans are dead, humans have been dead forever, and now the bugs become intelligent and they're making their homes in these gigantic human houses. So you see people just making their little homes out of household objects. You go under the bed and there's like a whole thing. There's something magical about a game that can look anywhere and be like, okay, see this shelf here? What if that was magical? What if you're like this tall and then suddenly every object on the shelf is something interesting? I love shit that can do that. The physics on like the movement are also surprisingly nuanced. You only have 2 moves. Aside from the jump, there's like a float move. You know, it's like the Rayman helicopter here. You go into a bubble and you float for a little bit. And your other move is you ride on like a little bar of soap. That's kind of your way to get around quickly. But the bar of soap is so satisfying to ride because the physics on it feel real good. You can snap to a rail. You can jump and carry that speed into the rest of your movement. It's really fun just getting around. They even got these time trial things, and I was very surprised where the skill ceiling was sitting with them. It's not like Mario Odyssey Balloon World level of movement physics nuance, but I was getting a gold medal over and over, and I was like, why is platinum this hard? And after 15 tries, then you get it. It was like, okay. That was pretty freaking fun. It's just a game that really ticks every box, you know? You can tell it was made with love and passion. The artwork is fantastic and endearing. The gameplay is fast-paced and super fun, and it remixes these familiar ideas you love while feeling like a new thing at the same time. Easily the second dopest indie game I've played all year. And yes, I say second dopest because the best indie game I played all year and the best game I played all year.
Number 1.
Oh, Signalis, bro. Sig-fucking-Nalis. Holy shit, this game's good. If you like any of the old Silent Hill games, 1 through 4, or Fatal Frame, or the old Resident Evil games, you have to play Signalis. It's that tight inventory resource management kind of thing. It's quite unforgiving. It's the only survival horror game that's really challenged me enough with a small enough inventory for me to be like, yo, what if I left the flashlight behind though? And then that ended up being the smartest choice to make. I've never had a survival horror game make me think outside of the box a little bit in that way. It's that same kind of room-to-room beats of horror where there's a loading screen with each one, and during that short time where you don't know if the next screen's gonna be safe or not, you always just want to hold down the trigger to aim. Shooting is careful and methodical. You do want to make all the bullets count. You don't get a ton of resources. The combination of melee weapons, kind of how they function in their own way that makes them really useful for certain situations versus how the all of the ranged weapons like the pistol and the shotgun all work. This was a survival horror game where every room almost felt like a puzzle. Maybe not every room, but a lot of rooms, just thinking about which enemies to remove, if any. Did I want to stealth this? No, they see me every time I get to this part. Well, if I take out just this one guy, maybe that'll do it. It also has an incredibly gripping, horrific, consciousness dissolving story about just this cosmic idea of your entire life being locked in a box and launched into space, and you relive the same day over and over again until one day it's over and you don't know why you're really doing it. You don't know if it'll ever be worth it. All you know is you will never see anyone ever again. And that's kind of the jumping off point, and you see all of these androids and there's like this broadcast, and everyone's experiencing these same memories, and they keep getting flashes of this island and they don't know why, and you have a photograph of someone who you don't recognize, and it's like, I guess we're looking for them, and that's the only lead we got. And I don't even know how to talk about this game's story without feeling like I'm in a haze running in circles. But it is such a trip. It is such an existential mindfuck in this interesting, like transhumanism sort of way, where you're really thinking about the consciousness itself and what the experience must be when your memories are just so fucked that you don't know what's real and what's not. Even each individual moment when you're really descending into madness and the walls are turning into flesh, and you're not sure how literal it is. It's a really smart game, and it would require a lot of smart brainulating to try and figure out why. But it's a really emotionally driven narrative, and anything I think that explores psychology, just how we are, why we react the way we do to certain things, and how those experiences can be affected. I think those are always very valuable stories, probably the most valuable stories. It's just an absolute masterpiece. Like, on a visual, technical level, the lighting is incredible looking. It looks like a Super Nintendo game and a PS1 game at the same time, except with dope, cool lighting. The gameplay is just like 10 out of 10 survival horror decision making. It's really spooky. The atmosphere is incredible. The music just drones on you in the most emotional way. It's a game I am going to play through a lot more times in my life. I know that for a fact right now. I kind of brush past this on the store a lot of times because like the artwork didn't really grab me. I think like that cover art on the PlayStation Store doesn't really do like a super great job of getting across what this game's about. But take it from me, like, it is an absolute masterpiece of the genre. And I think everybody should kind of use it as a shining example of good survival horror, both game design and narrative design. And that wraps up all the new shit I played this year. Hopefully there is a new thing or two in there that you didn't recognize, but now I want to talk about more stuff you're probably not going to recognize. These are the kind of new games. These are games that did not come out this past year, and if they did, it was like they were on Steam first, and then they came out on Switch 2 years later. But it's stuff I played in the past year that I do want to share because a lot of them are pretty cool. One of my favorite things I played this past year was this mysterious PS1 the first-person adventure game. It's like 20 minutes long and it's like $5 called how do you say this? Everyone's gonna make fun of me. Fatum Betula. Fatum Betula? Fatum Betula? Fingy Bingy. It's a game that's just hitting you with very large existential concepts right away, which I love. Basically, You are in this small world that has existed for eternity. There was no previous events leading up to this fountain being made, this forest being made. It's just always existed as is forever. And you are immortal, like many of the other inhabitants in this world, and you're all bored because reality has been one unchanging thing for eternity, which is kind of like the same thing as death. And there's a lot of people that are just like, I've just been sitting here doing nothing for 5 trillion years, actually infinity years, I don't know. There's this like fountain of life that is keeping this little PS1 looking world in its perpetual state of eternity. And this horrible evil I don't know if he's evil, this eye deity thing just gives you 3 vials. It's like, yeah, we're getting bored of this thing going on forever. Look for something you can like poison the water with, I don't know. So you're just looking around this world doing kind of like adventure game puzzles, like, oh, if I find this knife and cut the rope on the boat flies over there, and I get the fishing rod where I catch a fish and I feed the fish to this cat, and the cat dies, and then I can get the cat's blood and poison the water with the blood. It's really ridiculous. It's very silly. It's very short, too. You can also save scum to just get all the endings. I'm really glad they let you do that, so you don't have to just keep playing through the same intro over and over. It's weird, it's fun, it's neat, it's funny, and it's also dirt cheap, so I couldn't recommend it anymore. Another really cool one I played on Switch, it was a very long name. It's called Bag of Milk Inside a Bag of Milk Inside a Bag of Milk Inside a Bag of Milk, and it had a sequel called Bag of Milk Outside a Bag of Milk Outside a Bag of Milk Outside a Bag of Milk. It's a visual novel game that follows somebody with psychosis, and they're just going to the grocery store to buy a bag of milk. And, you know, when you have incredibly awful mental health problems, that can be a nightmare. That can be a feat. So they kind of, using like these really crunchy, awesome horror aesthetics and this just droning, terrifying audio, just instill these emotions in you as you just do the simplest thing. And the way they use the text mechanics to kind of represent different elements of the character talking to themselves is really, really fascinating. I love games that try to explore some of the more uncomfortable facets of mental health, but in a way that's understanding and isn't just pointing at somebody and saying they're crazy. Is, you know, like Psychonauts 1 versus Psychonauts 2, where in like Psychonauts 2 they're like, wait a minute, we can say something meaningful about the struggles up here. And then they did, and it was really cool and really, really cute and wonderful. And this is definitely a game that kind of humanizes those sorts of people in a similar way, especially since they don't treat it as something that you can just fix. It's something you have to, it's a struggle that you just have to figure out how to live with. The visuals are wicked, the audio is amazing, it's just amazing at instilling in you all of the proper emotions to kind of relate to somebody who's experiencing something that you probably never will, and could have a hard time understanding because of that. I think stuff like this is like really important and really fucking awesome. On the flip side of things, we have a super happy, colorful little indie game. This is like one of the cutest things I ever played. I actually played this on Switch a couple of years ago, and I might have even mentioned it before, but I replayed it on PlayStation because it was on sale again, and I was like, I bet I could get all the trophies in that in an afternoon. And it is just such a delight, such a relaxing, cute little thing that game is. The whole plot is you just land at some summer camp, you're a little funny penguin, and you just gotta climb to the top of the mountain so you can get some reception on your phone, so you can call your mother and make sure she's okay, and that's it. And it's very light on story, but you get a lot of characterization just through the dialogue, and there's so many things to do on the island as you make your way up. You don't even have to climb the mountain, or you can just climb the mountain right away and then do all the other stuff. But doing the other stuff's really rewarding because you know, like the Breath of the Wild climbing meter that drains, you get golden feathers that increase your endurance meter or whatever, so you can climb higher and you can like fly higher. The gliding mechanics, the physics on them are surprisingly wicked. Just gliding around the island is incredibly satisfying. I'm a big believer in earning and spending gameplay loops. Like if you think about why Breath of the Wild is so satisfying, it's because you spend your whole meter climbing up, you're earning, and now that you've earned all this height, you get to spend it by gliding. Very much the same sort of sensation in this game. It does it incredibly well. Oh, yo, I also played Yakuza 7 finally this year. It was free on PS Plus, and that's when I Excuse me, that's when I finally got to play. There was a time I was really excited about the Yakuza games, because I was really into Yakuza 5. I played that when that first came out in the West on PS3. And then I played Yakuza 0, and I liked it, but I wasn't really as into it. I really loved 6, and I haven't played the other ones. But 7's like a fresh new protagonist. It's very different. The battle system's super different. I was very surprised at how much fun I was having, even though it's like you're going from what you'd think would be a more engaging battle system. You're actually throwing the punches to like picking the punches on the menu. But it has the same flashy effects, the same sound effects, and there's a little bit of strategy to it too, like depending on where they are positioned. It reminds me of Skies Arcadia a little bit, if they like actually did more with the kind of character positioning mechanics where they kind of wander on their own, and you don't want to attack a guy back here if there's a guy in the way because this guy will intercept you, and there's little things to always be thinking about there. So I find the combat like still really engaging, but the characters are absolutely the biggest selling point of this game. What's his name? Ichiban. Am I the only one that thinks he is like way better a protagonist than Kiryu? Like he has a lot of the same qualities that kind of make him very stoic and doesn't know how to react to situations because he's so out of touch. They achieve that by putting him in prison for a long time, and he comes out and everything's different. Everyone's got smartphones, he doesn't understand what a smartphone is, and there's some silly stuff there. But it's really about how they explore the more seedier parts of Japan, like prostitution and homelessness, in a really like fun and respectable way that's very humanizing for these people. Even if it all feels kind of like a cartoon where Ichiban's got like a big dumpster full of cum tissues and there's protesters being like, we gotta get rid of the brothels. If you don't want a kid whose mother is a prostitute, you think the kid would like that? And then Ichiban's just like, I never minded it, because his mother did work at a brothel, and so to him that's just kind of normal. And now you get to have these fun, goofier conversations about like, why don't we respect these things? What are these people doing wrong? And it's really quite nice.
You know how like Trailer Park Boys weirdly humanizes really raunchy characters and kind of shows you that there's like a human side to all of these people that have a difficult time interacting with the normal world? It really reminds me of that.
Just such a lovable, incredibly good cast of characters. Every time they're just in a room talking to each other, it's always really entertaining. Oh yeah, there's this weird low-budget game called Crypt of the Serpent King. I bought it for like $2 on sale, and I got the platinum trophy in one sitting. It took me like an hour. It's a pretty challenging game, but like once you figured out the pattern, it's like you solve the game and you win. And the platinum's yours. You just like beat the game and then you get it. It was actually kind of fun though, but it was like, man, if you want an easy platinum, get Crypt of the Serpent King on sale for $2 at some point. What's an actual game? Nier Replicant. I've been meaning to play Nier Replicant for a while. I remember the first time I ever heard about Nier. God, I itch my nose so much. I don't know why. I think my nose hairs like grow way too fast and they're always sticking out and making my nose itchy. Like I know when I'm on camera a lot and I watch it over, I'm just like, why do I always touch my nose? Sometimes I get comments and people are like, what's this guy touch his nose for? It's itchy. I got an itchy schnozzer. What was I talking about? Nier, right. So the first time I heard about Nier was I had a friend at a Christmas party tell me about it forever ago. This is like back when it was just original Nier, and I think Automata or whatever, that just got announced. It wasn't out yet. And I was like, what's that old Nier game? I remember like it got bad reviews and that was it. And my friend Nick, he was just like, no, listen. And he knowledged me right up. I got the remake on PS4 though. I didn't get super far in it, but man, that game hits such a unique mood. There's something just like wonderfully melancholy about the color palette and the music. And I'm not like even a huge fan of the hack and slash gameplay. I always kind of hate like, you have to hold R1 the whole time or it's just extra damage you're not doing. Maybe there's some strategy or extra thing to it that I never figured out. But it's really the writing that sells those games so well. Definitely something I'm going to try and poke at some more throughout this year. The last game I have on the kinda new list is Super Sammy Roll. That's one of my favorite things I played all year. I was really glad that I got to make a little video about it because I just wanted to put that in front of as many people as I possibly could. As far as games with like actually interesting and unique and original physics-based platforming movesets where it's all about the challenge of getting through an obstacle course in the same way that Mario 64 was. One of the most fun ones I've played. It's got a grapple and is very bouncy, and you get momentum, and you earn the momentum, you spend the momentum. It's challenging, you know what I'm saying? It's one of the most fun things I've played on my PS5 yet. You can even play it at 120 FPS on PS5. The TV me and my girlfriend got at the beginning of this year, it supports 120 FPS, which was a surprise to me. And like every time a PS5 game supports that, it's weird. It's weird. I never thought there would be much of a difference. You don't really see it as much as you feel it when you turn the camera, and it's pretty nice. Anyway, that's it for kinda new games. Now I just got old games. This video's gone on so long, I'm only gonna mention a couple of these. The ones I really want to talk about. Dude, I've been a big fan of those old, weird, portable Sims games. I remember I really wanted Sims 2, but my mom got me the DS version instead of the PC version, and I was like, well, I'm sure this is something. And it was like this weird adventure game where you're running a hotel, and it had aliens and the mafia and these weird, hilarious storylines to it, and I really liked it. And I also had Sims Bustin' Out on Game Boy Advance, and that's also like run around the neighborhood, talk to people, do little quests, and get your furniture and fill your house, sort of, I don't know, like social adventure game, little town adventure game. I don't even know what really genre they call this, but it's definitely more in the ballpark of something like Tulip than The Sims. But there's one between those two I've been meaning to play my whole life, and it was The Sims Herbs on DS. That game is wicked. That game is actually so much fun. It is just so unafraid to be bizarre and stupid. Every character's name is like a pun, like the biker guy's name is Dust E. Hog. There's like a pirate guy named Old Salty. The evil billionaire guy who's rich and he keeps buying up parts of the town just to fuck everybody over and just be a soulless corporate shill. His name is Daddy Big Bucks, and he does some silly stuff. There's a point in that game where he's so sick of you running around town, spoiling all of his plans, he makes it illegal to run. For like a whole half a chapter, you get arrested if you hold the B button to run. You have to walk everywhere. If you go into a sprint, you get arrested, you're in jail, pay $100, get out. I'm not fucking joking. The character portraits are so good. Every character is just so expressive. At first, it's just like, oh man, this looks kind of bad. But the more you look at it, it's like, it looks a little like low poly, not the cleanest textures, it's on a low res screen. But what are we talking about? Look at the personality in these expressions. These are some of the most expressive characters I've ever seen. I mentioned that I was loving that game on Twitter and everyone thought I was shitposting. I'm not. Sims Herbs on DS is a legitimately cool-ass game. And it fixes like all of those dumb little issues I had with Sims Bustin' Out. A lot of things require you just like sit in front of a weight bench and lift weights to build a meter so you can get like body skill level 10 and read a book for 10 fucking years and you can't do anything else because it's the Game Boy Advance game. You just look at your character and that's it. Now half of the skills you can get through other means that don't require all this waiting, and the ones that you do, you can now poke around the touchscreen and look at your goals and your relationships, and there's actual other stuff to do. It's just such a genuinely fun and silly game. If you have a DS laying around or like an R4 or something, or if you like even find a copy, I would 1,000,000% recommend playing through it. As far as other old games go, I have something awful to admit. I spent this past year getting the platinum trophies in almost all of the old Assassin's Creed games. I don't know why. Call it a quarter-life crisis, maybe. You know, I was obsessed with those games as a teenager. Now I think they're mechanically void of anything interesting. The writing in all of those games is just so, like, just video game story where everyone's just, hey, Ezio, look at how loud and charismatic I'm being. Oh, the door, you know he likes the drink and the women, but, oh, I know he's a good fighter. And that's every fucking character, you know what I mean? It's worse in some games than others. But basically, the reason I went through all of this is because as a teenager, I loved Brotherhood so much, and I couldn't get the platinum trophy in it because it was like, hey, you got every single trophy? Well, you want the platinum? Spend like 50 hours in the online multiplayer. And I was like, no. So just those 3, 4, 5, whatever online trophies just blanked out, and everything else I got, and I was like, this is bullshit. So when the Ezio trilogy came out and it didn't have the online, and I knew I could get the Platinum in Brotherhood again, I was like, I gotta do it. But then I was like, well, I can't play Brotherhood again without replaying 2. I gotta see what 2 is like, and I Platinum 2, and I thought it was such a boring, exhaustingly long game, and none of the writing connected with me at all anymore, and just looking through canned animations that, like, once upon a time was very thrilling. But now it's like, I don't know, I like Dark Souls, I like Outer Wilds, I like Mario 64, I'm playing Assassin's Creed now, and it sucks. I hate these games. So I beat 2 and I platinumed it, I Platinum Brotherhood, and I was like, well, I hate myself so much, I just have to play Revelations. And you know what's so fucking messed up? Revelations is the best one. I didn't believe it either. I remember watching like a top 10 Assassin's Creed games, and this guy put like Revelations ahead of Brotherhood, and I was like, this guy's crazy. No, he's right. Like, it's actually, it's like you play it back when it comes out, and it feels like the same shit for a third time, fourth time even. But playing them back to back, it's so much more colorful than the first 2 Ezio games, despite being in a less colorful setting. The little hook blade, like the extra mechanics, like the bomb crafting, those were actually like a lot more fun to play with than I remembered. There's that really cool little underground city level that I really love, the handful of missions there. I actually thought Revelations was kind of decent, despite it being it's just another Assassin's Creed game. Then I also replayed 3. 3 was better than I remembered, but it was still pretty stale and exhausting, and I gave up getting a platinum on that one because it's just, there's a million things to do, and the progress tracker can glitch anyway, and I'm just like, I'm not even gonna bother. I didn't want to play through 4 again, because it's just like, I can't, what am I doing to myself? So I just skipped 4, and I just went to Black Flag. Those are the same game, numbnut. I skipped 4, and I went to Rogue, because that was the one I never ever played. I've never played Rogue or Syndicate. Those are the only 2 I never played, so I thought, oh, let's just play Rogue. And, yeah, it's just Diet Black Flag. It's actually quite good, and the story is a little bit more interesting than usual. I'm not going to say the characters are, like, well written, but they're certainly more interesting than anybody in, like, the Ezio games, at least upon, like, replaying them again as an adult. But yeah, those were my self-loathing quarter-life crisis Assassin's Creed playthroughs. I spent so much time this year, dude, playing Assassin's Creed games that I wasn't even having fun playing. I was like sitting beside my girlfriend, I'm like kind of half watching her playing something actually interesting like Elden Ring while I'm just playing fucking Assassin's Creed. Why? I don't know. I'm not trying to like shit on the series or nothing. I just think objectively, going back to the original ones, they're just far less interesting games to kind of go back and replay than any of the newer ones, like Odyssey Origins and Valhalla. Those games are like really fun. Super great popcorn, just run around the world, find stuff, do the strongholds. I love those new ones. And the new one, Mirage, I was angry with myself for having an emotional reaction to seeing the Assassin HQ in Jerusalem or whatever the fuck it is being built, and I was like, well, how am I getting nostalgic for Assassin's Creed? That makes me feel old and angry, because objectively it's kind of like a junk food series, but I don't know, I'm finding myself weirdly excited for Mirage. I don't know why. I should get excited for indie games, not Assassin's Creed, but hey, I can do both. Chibi Robo is a game that was on my bucket list for a long time. I lost my save to it when I was probably like a good 4 or 5 hours in, but for a good while, me and my girlfriend, every night before bed, we'd play it for an hour, because it's a very like narrative thing, and me and my girlfriend like playing through narrative stuff together, and it's just such a cute, enthralling, just magical game. The way it handles the story beats, like you're in one room and it feels larger than life and magical because you're just like the size of a pencil, and you hear these weird sounds coming from the basement, and suddenly, oh, there's a basement now, and you go down these giant steps and there's all these wooden beams, and you see this powered down robot down there, and it's like, I'm the second robot? There's a story here, and you like plug yourself in to try and recover memory from it or whatever, and you just get this one like vision of it seeing something like ethereal in the backyard, and you see something you can't explain, and all the toys come to life. It's like, what? That's why the toys are coming to. What was that? Every story beat, it's like, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? In the best, most curious way. it's also goofy as shit and just downright hilarious. I think Chibi Robo is a game that everyone who just likes goofy, cute little Japanesey things, everybody, you gotta play Chibi Robo. I think that game costs like $2 trillion. I just hacked my Wii and I put all the GameCube ISOs I care about on a memory stick. Fucking arrest me, Nintendo, suck my cock. That is really the best way to play a lot of older games, is just through like modified Wiis and stuff like that. Not to say that I'm condoning piracy, but like, if they put Chibi Robo on the Switch and I could pay it, and even if it was $50, I would buy that, right? But right now you can't. So it's just, that's like the only logical option. Hopefully they put it on like modern platforms though, because that is a game that sincerely needs to be remembered and replayed by new generations. I got some other stuff there too, but nothing I really want to, things worth talking about. I put Illbleed there though, just because, you know, I made a video about that one, but that Illbleed was on the bucket list for so long. I think I went over why in that video. Just because it was like the last one of those games I played in that big bunch when my friend and I were just burning all these rare games that we would never ever see. That's the second time I've said that and just realized the irony in it mid-sentence, because I have them all now, but only because I've just been like granted by happenstance to have this job that I do where I can actually like, I can afford to spend $100 on a rare thing every now and then because that's part of my job and that's just how I'm gonna earn money back. So I guess this is a thank you for that. Yeah, seriously, it's fucked that I get to do this for a living, and I wouldn't if you guys didn't keep coming back watching these videos. So like, yeah, like holy shit. You know, I just think about that again like every now and then, and it's hard to compartmentalize. But fuck, you never stop appreciating it. Anyway, that was my big dumb all of the games I played this year video. Hopefully that was entertaining and interesting, and maybe I showed you some games that you got to see that you didn't know before that you think are like, hey, I'm gonna try that out. I can't even form a proper sentence right now, dude. Yeah, that's it. Go home, stop watching, turn off the video. I'll be back soon with that yearly update video I always do. I'll be talking about just like what I plan on doing this year and kind of going over like, you know, how my last year went and stuff. Hopefully, if you care, you'll look forward to that. Hopefully, you'll look forward to more videos. I plan on doing a video about Signalis. I'll tell you though, I am going to call that thing Signalis in the first 10 seconds because thanks to calling it Protocol, I found out you say the name of the game wrong. Engagement for weeks, baby! Seriously, there's nothing people love more than pointing at you and being like, you did that wrong. And it's like, yeah, I did. Thanks for watching, thanks for tolerating a more rushed version of this. Hopefully it's not too disappointing that I'm not doing the more formal, heavily edited ones, but I feel like this is maybe a good compromise. Let me know what you think. This is probably what I want to do from now on, because I tried to play at least a couple of interesting, kind of more under the radar-ish games, and if I just enjoy them and I don't get to put them in front of other people, I'm left with a bottomless pit in my heart, where it just feels like, more people need to be looking at this right now, and I have a platform to do that, so it's just like, how could I not? But yeah, thanks for watching. That's like the third time I've said that. Oh, I'm so bad at ending a video if I didn't write the end of the video, which I didn't, so it's just going to cut to the end slate now.